Hello everyone, welcome back to Crochet Rocks. My name's Tracy, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this pot stand. This one is purely for standing things on that are not hot, so a fruit bowl or something like that, a vase, anything of that kind of nature, because I've not made it with a cotton yarn. This is just made with acrylic, which obviously doesn't do well with heat. So if you wanted to make this so that you could put a pan on it, for instance, then make it out of a more durable cotton. Research your yarn that you're using, and you can make this out of any weight yarn, and I have trouble saying worsted, so you can make it out of that, which is a 4 weight, or a UK Aran. You can make it with a bulky 5. Just remember, it will get bigger. You can also drop down the amount of rounds if you wanted it smaller or bigger. You can increase it, and I'll show you how to do that as we go. Now this is in a DK weight, and it's a nice little size, but you know, it will only stand a kind of a medium-sized bowl really, so it would have had to have gone bigger. So if you are using a different weight yarn, then please remember just to adjust the hook and that really, so that it will kind of correspond, you know. Make sure you use the corresponding hook. So I've just used these 2 yarns, and this is a Poundland acrylic yarn. It's a DK, but it's not the most thinnest of yarns, and I'm using like a Hobbycraft, Hobbycraft Everyday DK for the contrast. So I always start this with the variegated colour in the middle, but you don't have to use a variegated yarn. I just think it looks a little bit more interesting with using one that's variegated and then one that's solid. So you can just use different colours if you want. You can rainbow it, you can do anything that you want to do with it, but I'm just using these 2 colours for now. So as it's not particularly fine, that yarn, I'm using a 5.5mm crochet hook, and I've got a little pair of scissors here. You will need a darning needle, but I don't have it to hand because this table tends to have things roll, so I didn't really want it rolling all over the place. So to start then, we're going to use this colour, and I'm going to start with a magic ring, magic loop, whichever you call it, and I do a very easy magic ring. A lot of tutorials are overly fussy, but all I do is make a ring, insert my hook and pull the yarn through, and that's it, you've made it. So to first off, I'm going to do 2 chain to get me up to the height of a UK treble crochet, which is a US double crochet, and I'm just going to make my ring a little smaller by pulling on this yarn, not too small, but don't really want it to be baggy and big. I'm going to zoom in just a bit, and I hopefully won't deviate off the camera. So what we need to have is 15 treble crochets. Remember, that's a UK treble or a US double crochet. And to do that, we yarn over, go into the center of this ring, yarn over and pull up a loop, so you have 3 on the hook. So yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through the other 2, and that's the stitch, and that's the stitch we're going to use all the way through, and we need 15, including our beginning chain. Now if you are a very loose crocheter and you do tall stitches, you may want to do 3 chain, but I never use 3 chain. Mine are not tall enough, and you'll get this like little bulge round if you have too many. So again, it's yarn over into the center of the ring, yarn over and pull up a loop, so you've got the 3, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. I'll show you slowly one more time, and then I will speed up. Yarn over into the center of the ring, yarn over and pull up the loop, yarn over, through 2, yarn over and through 2. So now I have, including this, 4. So I'm going to pause the video because there's nothing worse than somebody counting, and if I'm silent, it'll be a bit boring for you. So I'm going to pause the video, and once I've got to the end, once I have 15 including my 2 chain, I'll come back to you. Okay, so I have one more to do into my ring, and I've gone over that tail all the way along. And now I'm going to just pull on that a bit to get it to cinch together. You don't have to pull it as tight, like completely closed at this stage, but just don't let this tail end work its way out. So make sure you pull it sufficiently so that it will stay like that. So now I'm going to get my scissors and, leaving a nice tail, cut that yarn and get my blue colour, which I've got one here that I've already started on, and pull out some yarn, and I'm going to join my new colour. So what I do is I'm going to join this ring by slip stitching into the second of my chain. So there's the first one, there's the second one, and I insert and I hold on to this tail so it doesn't get ridiculously baggy. Just hold it at the back, and I pull my new yarn through and through that ring, that loop as well. And so now I've joined a new colour. Now I know that this isn't how everybody does it, but I'm just going to secure it, not to that one, but to the one that comes out of my stitch, with a little, just a little knot to secure like that. Don't have to do that, but I just, because I'm not sitting in my normal kind of way to do the tutorial, I like to be prepared. So now I'm going to chain up 2 to get me up to that height, and in this same stitch where this is coming out of, I'm going to do another treble crochet. Oops, got a bit of extra yarn there. So now I have 2 in that same stitch, and I'm going to do 2 in every single stitch around. So at the end of this round I will have 30, because I started off with 15. So it's just a case of 2 in each stitch. Now when you get all the way around, I'll pause the video now and I'll catch up with you when I get to this point. I'm working over these tails, taking care not to work over this tail, which of course you need to pull it tight. It's okay leaving it like that for now, but when you come to secure it, like sewing in your ends, you will need to make sure that that one is extremely secure. I usually do like a little knot with my darning needle, and then I go through and round the other side quite a bit. So I'm just going to continue doing 2 stitches in each one until I get back to this point here. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll catch up with you again when we get round there, and I need you to make sure that you've got 30 stitches at the end of that. I'm almost round. I've just got my last 2 to do and I have counted them, so this will become my 30th stitch, and I'm going to join my yarn to my next colour, which is this one again, in exactly the same way. So into the top stitch, and that's this one here, and I'm going to pull my other colour through and finish that off in that colour. Turn it over, and I'm going to just make sure that this doesn't distort in its size. Cut that one off. You can leave nice long tails because it helps to secure them. So I'm just going to make sure that that's not tight but not baggy, and I'm just going to tie that little knot as I did before, just to keep it snug while I'm doing my tutorial. So now, and a little trick to make sure that your round stays perfectly round, because sometimes when you're increasing, if all your increases are in the same stitch, it starts to take on hexagon-like shapes, or just corners like a 50p. If you're not English, that's a kind of a kind of coin where there's lots of little edges. So how I overcome that is that I do my increases in my first stitch in alternate rows. So this one, I won't do the increase in my first stitch. So I'm going to do my 2 chain to get up to my height. And this is the stitch what I'm in. So that comes from there. So in my next stitch I'm going to do an increase. So in the next stitch I'm going to do 2. And in the next stitch I'm going to do a single stitch on its own. And in the next one I'm going to do 2. So that's how we are going to carry on all the way around, by doing 1 on its own and then an increase. And as we started with 1 on its own, we will finish, our last stitch should be an increase. And we're going to increase by 15 stitches in this whole round. So we will have 45 stitches at the end of this. So that's what I want you to do, is to continue doing 1 on its own, an increase, 1 on its own, an increase, all the way around until we get back to the start where we should finish on the increase. So I'm going to pause the video and I'll catch up with you then. I'm almost back. So in this one is my single and my last increase. So I should have my 45 stitches. I'm going to go into my top chain and pull through my other colour. And through my loop. Just going to get rid of this colour now. And just, I know it's annoying and it's probably not the way you do it. Just join that with a little snug, quick little knot. There you go. So then I get my yarn together. So now we're going to do our increase on our first stitch. So I'm going to do 2 chain and 1 into the same stitch as where that is coming from. So I've done my increase now in my first one. And whereas in this round beneath we had 2 together and then 1, 2 together then 1, we're going to have 2 together then 2 single ones. So into the next 2 stitches we're just going to do 1 on its own. And that's how we increase every round now. We just go up by 1 in between our increase, but you need to alternate. Oops, just pulling some yarn and went a bit, forgot I hadn't put it down there. Just alternate where you start with your increase or you start with a single, and that way you will have a perfect round. It's not got any defined edges where those increases are, because they're always in a different spot. So that's what we're going to do for this round. We're going to just, I'm looking over the tails again, so I'm doing 2 on their own in the next 2 stitches, and then I'm doing my increase. So 2 in the same stitch and then 2 on their own, and we're going to go all the way around. I'm doing this quite baggy because it's a tutorial, so it will buckle a little bit, but it will flatten. Once you've finished, you can manipulate it a little bit. So I'm going to carry on doing that all the way around. So that is my increase and then 2 single ones on their own. I'm going to pause the video, work all the way around, and I shall meet up with you here. And our last 2 stitches should be single ones because we started with our increase. So I'm going to pause it now and I'll catch up with you when we get to this point. Okay, so I'm almost round and I'm going to finish off with my last 2 on their own. And at the end of this round you're going to have 60 stitches. So I'm going to join, as I have every round so far, by slip stitching into there and bringing through my new colour. And this for now will be my last round, but you can make this as big as you want, or you can do less. It's completely up to you if you don't feel it's big enough for what you need or what you want. So I'm just going to bring my new colour through and join it just as we have done all the other rounds. And you probably guessed it, this one we're going to not start with an increase, and we're going to do 3. So this is going to count as our first one, and then in our next stitch we're going to do another one, and then another one in the next. So we have 3, and now we're going to do an increase, and we obviously started with an increase last time, so we haven't this time. So now we've got to go and do our 3 on their own. And then our increase. Now if you're used to doing it the other way and you find this confusing, then that's fine. But this way at least it keeps it in a nice round shape without, you know, kind of having any of those strange little corners. So we're going to carry on in that vein. We're going to just do 3 on their own now, and then our increase, and we're going to do that all the way around, working over tails just to make life a little easier for ourselves. Don't get rid of that one, I'll cut that one off anyway. So that's 3, and now I'm going to do an increase, and I'm going to carry on all the way around. Pause the video and I will catch up with you when we get to this point here. And so we should have 75 stitches at the end of this round. Okay, so I'm almost round, and I know that when I do my border, I am 1 stitch short for that border, so I'm just going to do an extra stitch. So where I've got my increase there, instead of just doing in the last 3, I'm going to do a double in that one, like 2, and then I'm just going to go and do my 3, and that will give me 1 extra stitch. And actually no, that last one should be an increase, shouldn't it? That's right. Give me 1 extra stitch for my border, and now I'm going to slip stitch into the top chain and end off that colour. You just want basically 1 extra stitch. So make sure that you kind of pick that up somewhere. Starting to buckle like a record that's been left out in the sun. All of those of you at a certain age will remember what that's like. So now I'm going to put on this border, and I have done a tutorial already for this border, so that's how I knew that there was 1 stitch too few. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do it in my darker blue. So I'm going to join anywhere. Just choose not to do it there because of the join already. So I'm just going to join this to any one, and I'm going to join it with a little knot, and I'm going to work over the tail as much as I can. So now I've done that little knot. So what I now do is I insert my crochet hook into that point, bring up a loop and do 1 chain, and that just gives me my little anchor. Now in the next stitch I'm going to do 5 double crochet, which is a UK term. So for the US that's a single crochet in this next stitch here. I'm just going to do 5, then I'm going to skip a stitch, and in the next one I'm just going to slip stitch. And I'm going to carry on doing that all the way around. So in the next stitch, sorry I'm getting tangled with my tail. In the next stitch I'm going to just do my 5. Skip 1 and slip 1. And that just makes this nice, like shallow wave border. Skip 1 and slip one. And there we go. We're just going to do that all the way around. And as I say, it will start to look like a vinyl record that you've left on the windowsill in the sunshine. But don't worry, you can either block it or just flatten it. It kind of very malleable, really. Skip one, slip one. So I'm going to do that all the way around, and when I get to this point here, I will catch up with you and show you how we end off. Alright, so I'm almost all the way around. I'm on my last one, so I'm going to do my So if you do this border and you find at any point that it doesn't actually add up, then just go back one, and instead of skipping one and slip stitch, just slip stitch into the next, and then you'll get an extra stitch to do it. So that's my skip one. I'm going to slip stitch into the same one that I started with, end off my yarn by doing a chain, pulling it down, pulling it through. And like I said, it does get to resemble, let's zoom out a bit, one of those lovely vinyl 45s that we all, when we were kids, left on our windowsill by mistake and ended up with a very artistic, lumpy, horrible thing. So don't worry about that. It will flatten out with use, and especially if you can block it, or it's quite malleable, you can stretch it into place. But that's all that leaves to be done now is sewing in any ends that you still have to sew and pulling this one nice and tight to cinch together and close that hole. And don't forget, when you sew this one in, you really need to secure it to stop it from working its way loose again. So thank you for watching, everyone. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. You'll be informed when there are new videos. I did already do a tutorial for this border, and I will pop a link in the description box below, because there is a variation to the end should you want to do it. But thank you for watching, and until next time, bye bye for now.